Hey guys, and welcome to my tutorial. In this tutorial you will learn how to create your own textures using Blender and Photoshop. I will be sharing my techniques from which you can achieve these results. So first select all by pressing A and then X to delete them. Now press Shift A and select plane from mesh. Press tab to enter in edit mode and W to subdivide it. Change the number of subdivision to 16. Now press 7 to go to our top orthographic view and then press Shift A and select the camera. Grab it by pressing G and then Z to move the camera on Z axis. Select the Object Data tab and change the perspective type to orthographic and its value to 2. Now go to the Output tab and change the resolution to 2048 or to 4096 to match the camera view to plane mesh. Now go to the Modifier tab and add Multi-Res modifier and change the subdivision type to simple and subdivide it 3 times. Now add Displacement modifier. Before adding texture to displacement, we will be splitting the viewport into 2 by hovering over the top border of the viewport and then right click. You can split the viewport vertically. Now change the current editor type from 3D viewport to properties so that we can change the texture and apply changes to the modifier side by side. Now add new texture in displacement modifier tab and then select show texture. Change the image type to cloud. You can also apply other texture and play with it to create new texture. Cloud can give you the look of a muddy texture, and if we change the size it will not show the results in real time. And it's a bug right now. To solve this issue you need to right click the mid level and apply keyframe and then decrease end animation range value to lower than 10. Then go inside Object Data and select Shade Smooth. And inside shading, change the matte cap to what helps you to see more details of the model. If you want to hide the display object like lights and camera, click on this button. Now if we press Shift spacebar, it will start the animation, and then you can easily preview the changes in real time. If you change the properties of the texture, change the size of the texture and check the color ramp. Now if you increase the black marker closer to white, it will clip out the details from value that are closer to the black. Do the same to white, make it closer to black to clip out white details. Decrease the strength to make it look thinner and increase the detail from the texture properties and subdivide the mesh to make the details more prominent in the mesh. If you want more detail, the more subdivision is needed for the mesh. And if your computer lags, then decrease the value of multi-res, preview and play with the color ramp so that you can easily modify your textures. You can create a lot of textures from the Blender built-in textures, so take your time to make one. Now hide the displacement modifier and we will apply displacement modifier again, but this time to create rock formation. Click New and show textures. Now change the type from cloud to stutchy. Change the position of white marker of the color ramp to its original place. Change the noise basis to Voronoi F1 plus F2. Now do the same thing as we did before to preview it in real time. You can use the stutchy texture for rock, asphalt and many other textures. Apply keyframe to mid-level, then play animation. Change the strength to what height you want for the rocks. Change size to get more or less number of rocks. Change turbulence to get variation for the rocks. Now go to the shading tab and switch over to solid viewport. Change matte cap to preview the details. Now in the render output, change the rendering engine to cycles. Now click on New to apply material on the mesh. We will be going to create height maps, so duplicate the material output, press Shift A and select emissive from the material tab. Plug that into the material output, press Shift A and search for camera data. Now search for math node and duplicate it. Change the first one to subtract and the second math node to divide. Now plug the camera data into the math node and math node into the emissive material. Now in 3D viewport, press 0 on the numpad to switch the view to the camera and preview render it by pressing Shift Z. Play with the values of math nodes to make height map appear. What I usually do is change the divide math node value to -2 and then slowly increase the subtract math node value positively to make the height map appear. Now before rendering the image, go to the render tab and under the performance tab, check progressive refine and change the samples to 5 to 2 or 5 to 10. The more high the samples value are, the more you get the better results. Now go to the render and click render image. Now under the image, select save as, and before saving, change the 8-bit to 16-bit and then save it, naming height 1. Now go to the modify tab and hide the displacement modifier and make the first displacement modifier visible, and do the same process as we did with the first one. I will be going to open them inside Photoshop to make them tileable. As you can see, I have opened them in Photoshop. You need to apply offset, which is in filter tab. Change the value of horizontal and vertical to offset the image and make the seams appear. Now choose the heel tool brush and apply it on the seams with shift pressed. You can make straight strokes for the seams. Apply the brush wherever you see the seams and apply offset simultaneously. What I do to make seams visible, I apply level effect, which is present where the layer window is. It will help you to see where are the seams. You can also use clone brush if the heel brush is making artifacts around its corner of the brush after making strokes. Save the file if you are done with the image. Now for the second image, select the soft round brush, and after applying filter offset color, pick the black color from the image and apply it on the seams. You can also use a spot heel brush if you have different value of brightness or darkness. Save the image after you are done with the seams. Now in Blender, go to the Layout tab, hide all visible displacement, and apply new displacement modifier. Click Show Textures and import the image height map. Apply keyframe to mid-level. Change the strength to make it look thinner. If you want to make the imported texture tileable, go to Mapping tab and change the XY value to 2. Change the strength, but I'm going to change the mapping to 1. Apply displacement modifier again, and this time change the direction from normal to Z under displacement modifier. And import the second height map that we have created in Photoshop. Again, apply keyframe to the mid-level to show the results and change the strength to what suits better for the texture. And change the mapping to 2 to increase the number of rocks for the texture. We will be going to create normal texture from this mesh, so you can experiment a lot with this mesh. Now go to the shading tab. Now duplicate the material output and press Shift A and select emissive from shader. Press Shift A again and select image texture. The texture I'm using here, I will be sharing this texture with you guys, which will be present under description. Now search for the mapping node and plug that into the image texture. And change it to texture, and now change the location XY to 1 and scale XY value to 2 and Z to 0. Now search for the vector transform. Select normal and change the world to object and object to camera. Plug this into the mapping node. Now look for the texture coordinate and plug the normal into the vector transform. Shift Z to preview render it. If it looks wash out, go to the render tab. And under the color management, change the film look to default. After that, you can render it out by pressing F12 and then save the image. Now we will be creating diffuse map. To create diffuse map, copy the height map node and add a color ramp between the math and emissive shader. Preview render it, and if it doesn't display, then change the value of math node setting. Now change the black color to brown color and add different shades of brown colors to make it look muddy. I will encourage you to try out different colors while making different textures. It will help you to understand how it's work. The color ramp will give colors to mesh according to the depth of the mesh, so you can also give rock gray color. Slide the marker to make separate different tones of colors. Render and save it out if you are done with it. Now to make roughness map. Duplicate again the albedo, or you can say diffuse map, and change the color ramp color to black and white. The area which is black will represent 100% reflectivity and white will be 0% reflective. So add or slide markers to create roughness map according to what you need for the texture, and save the textures after you are done. You can create the metallic map in the same way as the roughness map, but instead, like roughness, metallic map are inverted. By that I mean the white area presents 100% metallic and the black area is 0% metallic. So create the color ramp according to which area you want to be metallic and save it. Now we will be making material from the saved textures. So now press Shift A and select image texture, plug that into diffuse and import the diffuse texture. Add a mapping node, plug that into image texture, and now add texture coordinate and plug UV to mapping. Now similarly, duplicate the image texture and import the normal texture. Add the normal map node and plug that into normal. Change the image texture to non-color data. Now import the roughness and add a map node. Plug the image texture to the matte node and matte node to the roughness. Change the matte node to multiply and plug the mapping node into the image texture. Change the render engine to EV and press Shift Z to render preview it. It needs some light, so I'm going to place HDR and point light in the scene. Increase or decrease the roughness map by using the math node. If your computer lags, then decrease the multi-res preview value. I'm going to tile the texture, so tile the displacement texture from mapping value. And also change the tiling of material texture by changing the mapping node XYZ scale to 0.5. And now I think it's done. You can apply grass textures with particle system to it. Even if you don't want the displacement, you can hide the displacement and multi-res modifier, and it will still give you some really cool results. So just don't overlook this technique, as it can be used for making gaming textures. So for the textures that I've used in the beginning of this video were created in similar manner. I just did a lot of experiment. As for the muddy texture, I have created the main height map with the built-in procedural textures of Blender, then added little stones by using the particle system. In that way, I have the ability to create the layers and layers of details. For the bricks, I just created different size of box meshes with different proportions and then sculpted with procedural textures as an alpha in the sculpt brush and use the material node to render out the textures. I did the same thing for the asphalt material, just created the texture from procedural textures and used their height map as an alpha in the sculpt brush and then render out the texture using material node. This was a bit longer tutorial. I tried to cover as much as I can, as the topic is so much vast that it need more time to cover each tool. I hope you like this tutorial. If you like this, then subscribe to my channel. I have a lot to share more. And if you want to get the project files and the texture that I've used in my tutorial, you can get them from my Patreon page. Thanks for watching.